Ladies and gentlemen, it is a long, cold, and rainy week here in the AstroTan backyard. And if you're an astrophotographer, you know exactly what this means. I'm going to be processing old images. Yay! No, but seriously, it is actually fun. But I'm also really wanting to get some new images, but I just can't. I mean, we're gearing up for the solar eclipse anyway, so we're just going to see what we can do here. In today's video, I'm going to be processing my Pleaides Star Cluster data back from earlier this fall, and I'm going to be showing you guys how I edit those images, and hopefully you guys can learn a thing or two around the way. This is how every astrophotographer processes their images, and this is through using skillful processing techniques and really showing you how good their skill is when editing images so they look really nice and have that pop to them. This is AstroTan, and let's just jump straight into it, guys. Alright you guys, we're going to get started here, and this tutorial is going to be so much fun, so I hope you guys don't get bored. So I had these process icons loaded up, and the way I did this is I went to File Explorer, went to my Astro folder, and I just hit this. And these are basically just shortcuts, so you guys would know from the last video that this is what I use to just make things a little easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Screen Transfer Function. Oh, hold on. There's a sneeze. So we're going to hit Screen Transfer Function. This is basically just showing us what is going on in this picture. Now honestly, I have no idea what's going on in this picture because I have not processed this data in forever. So we're going to hit Link RGB Channels. This is going to get rid of that green, hopefully. Boom. Now this data looks pretty good. It was from my light polluted backyard, so it's not as good as a dark sky site. So we're just going to keep this down here so you can just see what we're working with here. Next thing I'm going to do is go to Dynamic Crop, and I'm just going to kind of pinch these corners a little bit just to make sure that everything fits here nicely, because we don't want that weird looking black space clipping stuff. We don't want that. Doesn't look real, doesn't look natural. That's all stacking artifacts. So we're just going to hit the check mark on this, and you can see there that we got everything. Now I'm just going to make this a little bit larger so I can see what I'm working with here. Looks good. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is run an image analysis. And to do this, I'm going to go to Scripts and Image Analysis and Image Solver. Now this is so I can color calibrate my image because I want to make sure that everything is the natural color and not some weird funky color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in M45 because this is the target that I shot, the Pleaides Star Cluster, Messier 45, located in the constellation of Taurus. Pleaides, you can see it's right there. And make sure you have your focal length all good, your pixel size for your camera. So I don't care about resolution here, I'm just going to hit focal distance. It's 448 millimeters, but this is what it was at last time. It's basically the same thing. So hit OK on that. We're going to hit, do you want to continue anyway? Yes. And this stuff doesn't really matter, so you can just hit OK on that. So you can see it is all done. It basically just said, hey, I know exactly what this image is. This is the star cluster, this is the Pleaides Star Cluster, and I know because I looked at all the stars, so that's basically what it just said. So the next thing I'm going to do is I noticed that I have a lot of gradients in the back here, and super easy to get rid of that. I'm going to go to Scripts, Toolbox, and you're going to have to install this. There's YouTube videos on there on how to install Gray Expert. So this basically will make sure the background sky is the same with the nebula sky, so everything is all nice and balanced. So I'm just going to hit check on that. Oh, why is it taking so long? Alright, it is finally done, and it took a look at all of the crazy funky sky backgrounds. And you can see it just spit out a sky background here. This is basically telling us what it removed. So that's good. We could see we had some weird gradients over here that it removed, so that's awesome. So we're just going to close out of that because we don't need it. And you can see the background sky looks really nice now, but there's a lot of noise, so we're going to fix that up really quick. First thing I'm going to do is just go to Noise Exterminator. You're going to have to pay for this one. Sorry, guys. And use my little settings here. There's kind of a lot of noise, but I think I'll bring it down to 0.75. Hit OK on that. Alright, it is complete. Look at that difference right there, especially right in the noise. That is what we want to see right there. So now that our image is a lot cleaner, it gives us a lot more freedom to work with our data here. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to finally color calibrate this image. Now this image is not stretched yet, so we're just going to go straight for it. Now I did this with actually a narrowband filter, so things are going to look a little bit different here. So I'm going to select the narrowband filter that I used in the red, green, and blue filters, and this is going to give me the most accurate result in terms of color calibration. So this is going to basically just make all the colors as natural as possible based off of other sky data. So we're going to hopefully see if this will work. It generated us a little graph here. I have no idea what that means, so we're just going to close out of it, and we're done with this. So now let's see what it did to our data. Nice, nice, looks good, looks good. But we're going to actually stretch it first. So this is not stretched at all. This is just a screen transfer function. So now we're going to actually stretch it. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to go to Process, All Processes, and if I could find it, here it is, Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch. This is something that you have to install in your PixInsight. It's a really powerful tool for stretching. It's, I'm pretty sure, what a lot of people use now, and it gives you more freedom over where you want to stretch your image. So first thing to do is I'm going to make this histogram just a little bit bigger so I can see what I'm working with here. So I turned it up to 400. And you can see that right here we have basically our entire image. And to get a little base stretch, you want to hit somewhere in the ballpark right there. And once you've selected that, you want to hit Send to Symmetry Point. So now you can see that that little number changed right there. And that's going to tell us basically the symmetry point for where we want to stretch our image. So you can see that we're kind of starting to stretch it here a little bit. Now I'm going to bring this down back to 1, just like that. And if you have the stretch factor up, make sure you bring the local intensity up too as well. And then you could really start to see your image start popping out a little bit. So we're bringing this up, and make sure you go a little bit soft on the first stretch just to make sure you don't overdo anything. And for that, I'm going to hit Apply, and we're going to see how that looks. We're going to reset that. So you can see this gave us a really nice stretch of our image here. We have a lot of nice natural star colors here. Everything looks really nice. But I'm going to keep going with this. So I'm going to keep bringing this out. I'm going to go right here in the middle of the data again. Hit Send to Symmetry Point. And I'm just going to keep stretching until I start to feel happy with what this looks like. So I'm going to keep stretching a little more. Maybe bring this up slightly. I'm going to bring this back because I'm going to be changing that soon. And I think that's good for our general stretch here. And I'm going to do a couple more things to really make this image pop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start stretching this area of the image, this area right here. And it's really cool how you could do this because all you have to do is just hit reset on this and select an area of the image that you want to basically stretch more. So you can see I selected an area right here, and I'm just going to hit Send to Symmetry Point. Go back to my preview, and I'm just going to keep stretching it. And you can see how it stretched those areas separate from everything else. Now, I thought this was going to look good, but it didn't. So I'm just going to keep going with what I was doing. So I'm going to hit right here, and I'm just going to keep stretching it. Just like that. Giving us a really nice result here. I'm going to bring the highlights down a little bit because I don't want my image to be too blown out. Starting to look really nice. I'm starting to see a lot of the outer dust. And speaking of the outer dust, I think I'm going to go try and bring it out a little bit. So let's see what I can do here. I'm going to select an area where there looks to be a lot of dust. So we're going to select an area right there. And let's attempt to bring this out. Let's see. There we go. Super nice, super nice. Now you don't want to go overboard with this because over-processing your images sometimes doesn't look the greatest. So I'm going to try to avoid from doing that. Keep it a nice little tone like that. I think that's perfect. And so now I think it's time that I remove the stars. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close out of this. I think we have a really nice stretch here. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the stars now. So I'm going to go to Processes, All Processes, StarNet 2, and you have to install this as well. You basically have to install everything. And go to Clone for Starless. And I'm just going to hit Apply on this one. So, bam. So it removed the stars decently well. I will say that it kind of removed not all of them, but it still looks pretty good. And this is so I can reduce the stars a little bit because they're a little bit overpowering the image, I think. So I'm just going to hit star reduction method 1, and we're going to see what that did. That did a pretty decent job. I'm just going to see if I like any of the other ones better. So we're going to go to this one. It's the second method. And I think I'm going to go with the first one on this one. Normally I do go with the first one anyway, but yeah, this one looks the best to me. So now I'm going to actually fully remove the stars. And the way to do this is just go to the original image here and just hit create star mask. And that's all you have to do. Now we just have to wait for it to remove those stars and give us the stars separately. So let's get it. Alright, so StarNet is done, and it gave us those stars, and it also gave us the nebula here. So now I think is as any good as time as ever to keep stretching the image. And I'm going to go to the same thing I was doing, generalized hyperbolic stretch, and I'm going to take a look at the background sky here. But before I do that, I'm going to kind of tone it down a little bit. So the way I'm going to do this is go to transformation type in linear, and this is going to basically bring the blacks down, and we're going to see how much we can go with this without clipping our data here. And clipping the data basically means that you're kind of getting rid of the detail that you collected, and we want to make sure that we keep all the detail that we collected in this image. So I'm going to keep bringing it down, and you can see just from that we brought the sky background down in the blacks, but we also were clipping a little bit. Now that's a really small value, so you won't really notice anything, but the more you keep doing it, the more pronounced it might get. So I'm going to stop right there. And that is a good dark sky background, in my opinion, but we're going to keep working with this data set. Okay, so I finally got done playing around with this image, and I think I got as much detail as possible in here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a blue mask on here because I kind of want to saturate this a little bit, but I want to make sure that I only saturate the blue parts of the image because I don't want to saturate the background because there's nothing in there. So now that I got the blue mask thrown on there, I'm just going to hit mask blur to make it a little bit more smoother in the transition when we were only dealing with one color. Maybe throw it one more time, and I'm going to throw it right back on there. And now I'm only working on the blue parts of the image. So we're going to go to blue, and we're just going to bring the blues up a little bit here. I like that blue color to this nebula here. And maybe we'll saturate it a little bit as well. Look at how that color is changing there. Looks really nice. Now I think I'm going to stop there in terms of color because otherwise it gets a little bit too crazy. So that's good for me. And all I'm going to do is just close out of this blue mask because we don't need it. And it will already apply to our image. So this is great. I think it's time to bring this into Gimp, but before I do that, I want to take a look at the stars really fast. So you can see we have our star mask here. And I'm going to just take a look at these stars and maybe saturate them a little bit. You guys know I love saturating the stars a little too much, so we're going to see what we can do here without blowing the stars out. So all I did was I just brought this up a little bit, and that's going to bring the saturation slider up, and we're just going to apply. You can see I went extremely overboard here. We have a lot of weird star colors, but nothing that SCNR can't do. So we're going to go right here, start with the red color, and just kind of tone down those colors a little bit so everything looks a little better. And finally the blue. Right there, stars are looking better. I think I'll probably just stop with the saturation for this one because these star colors, they can get a little bit crazy, especially in the Pleaides Star Cluster, so I'm just going to keep it right there. Looks good to me. But before I do that, I'm going to quickly name this stars because I will need it for later and it's just more simple. So there's our stars, and we're just going to close it, and we're going to save you for later. And now I can go back and I can put this into Gimp where I can do my sharpening and final adjustments before I combine the two images together. So I'm just going to hit File, Save As, and we're going to name this, let's see, we're going to name this Nebula Yay. Hit OK on that, and let's head into Gimp. Now I got the nebula in Gimp now, and I'm going to start by kind of bringing the curves down a little bit because they look a little bit overpowered sometimes when thrown into Gimp. That looks good to me, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Filters, Enhance, and High Pass. This is what I use to sharpen my images because I don't have any of the cool expensive stuff that a lot of people have that makes their images look amazing, by the way. And you could see if I zoom in here, we sharpened it a little bit there. I'm going to do it one more time. And there we go. I think that's where I'll stop because I don't like to over sharpen my image. So there we go. We got it sharpened pretty nicely. And the next thing I'm going to do is maybe bring the highlights down a little bit because this is a really bright target. And maybe bring the contrast down a little bit. And I think we're good there to combine the images together now. So we're going to hit nebula yay 2. How does that sound? Perfect. Now we're going to hit export. Close out of that. Go back into PixInsight. And open this up. And if I saved it, there it is, nebula yay 2. And now, sadly, I'm going to have to get rid of that name and just make it something a little bit more simple. And we're going to go to identifier. And we're going to go to, let's just name it Nebula now. I know, very sad. We liked that name. So now that we got everything ready, it's time to go to processes, all processes, pixel math, one of the best things in the entire world. And if you remembered, we have our stars right here, and then we have our nebula that we just saved. And guess what we're going to do? We're going to combine those two. So we're going to go to nebula plus stars, and this takes the exact names and it's going to combine them together. And all you have to do is hit apply. There's our image. And there we go. That's going to bring everything to a close in this kind of software. And it's time to move over to the dreaded phone, where I'm going to do a little bit of quick touch-ups and just make sure the image looks as good as it can be. So let's go. Alright, so here we are in Adobe Lightroom Mobile, and this is where I go to just do my final adjustments. So I noticed right away that this image is kind of small, and that's because I didn't rotate it. So I'm going to rotate it like this, give it its nice original kind of rotation here that a lot of people see it as. And I noticed that I have a little bit of color noise going on here, and a little bit of some green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to color noise reduction, and really minimize that right there. I'm next going to do a little bit of saturation just on a broad aspect, and maybe I will touch up the greens a little bit by going to the curves and just bringing them down a little bit so I can really see all that nice blue color. And I think I'm going to go to highlights, bring this down a little bit, but also bring the exposure up on this so you can really see what's going on here. Maybe bring the contrast down a little bit, and maybe we'll bring the blacks down so I can use my favorite tool in the entire world in a second. Now that we've brought the highlights down a little bit, I'm going to go to Effects and Dehaze. I love this slider. This is my favorite slider. Really brings out a lot of stuff in your images. You can see right there we kind of made a lot of a really giant dehaze slider right there. So I'm going to go to maybe about 20. Sounds good to me. Maybe we're going to bring the tint up a little bit. And let's see, what else can I do here? See how the shadows look. And I've said this many times before, guys, it's really just trial and error sometimes. Just see what you like best, and honestly just go with the flow with it sometimes. So maybe bring the exposure back down a little bit, and let's see, saturate a little bit more. There we go. Looks to be really good. Maybe I'll bring clarity out a little bit, maybe to about 20, and bring the whites up, and let's see, do I think I need to do anything else here? I don't know. I think we are done with this. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys think this looks good? Yeah, I think it looks good to me. So if you guys followed along through this tutorial, this image is completely done now. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'm going to reel this a little more in depth at the end of this video, so make sure you guys stick around and watch that, coming up really soon. And I hope you guys learned a couple things. I thought I'd do a tutorial just because maybe you guys want to learn a couple things, and hopefully you guys can see more on how I really edit my images, not just based off of one tutorial. So I wanted to get this one out there. And oh man, it's a busy week. Solar eclipse coming up soon, and I hope you guys travel for that and image real.